morning, beloveds. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome here to UU Mount Airy. I'm Reverend McKinley Sims. I use he, him pronouns. And I am so glad to be here this morning co-leading this service with the wonderful Mary LaValle, who is going to be providing a reflection today. And you've already heard from the equally wonderful Patrick Case, who's going to be providing music this morning. Can you give Pat a hand? Big thank you to Alvaro Aleman, who's behind the scenes today running our tech, and thank you to you all for joining us here, whether you are here in person in our sanctuary or joining us online. I'm going to invite you to do a few things here. If you are here in person, if you would set your cell phones to do not disturb or turn them off. And if you're watching us online and you want the closed captions function on Zoom, if you click the CC button so that you have captions that you can follow along with. If you're watching us in other places, please know there's a Zoom call going on as well each week, and you can find out how to log into that Zoom by signing up for our newsletter from our website. There's lots of ways to be present here this morning. We invite you to find the way that works for you. If this is your first time here in the sanctuary, we still have access to the restrooms that are at the rear of the sanctuary, down the stairs to your right, or the handicap accessible lift to your left. But starting next week, if you come back next week, we will not have access to those restrooms because we're redoing the basement. So for this week, you can still use the restrooms. Fellowship Hall is still down there. There's nothing there because when we have our coffee hour afterwards, it's going to be over in Hale Lounge. So there are also restrooms over in Hale Lounge if you are in need. But everything is still working down there. For this week, it won't be working next week. I'm good? Fabulous. And because we are streaming live, please know that it's not just us here in the sanctuary. So when we do Joys or Sorrows or any of those other things, if you don't want to be on camera, just don't come up here to the carpet. Then you'll be just fine. All right, friends. Our service today is part of a series that started with a service on reparative genealogy and is exploring all the ways that we are together and how we live in our kind of racial identity and how we move through the world. So Mary and I are exploring the themes of stories and family identity today, and we are very excited to bring this service to you. To start off with for this morning, I invite you to close your eyes if you're here in person. Simply sit and listen. We're going to take a moment to connect ourselves and ground ourselves to this land. And hear these words. Our building sits on the traditional unceded Lenape lands of Lenapehoking, and many of us are settlers, immigrants, or descendants of those forcefully brought to this continent, we must recognize and never forget this reality. Our congregation's livelihood and history are part of the colonization of Lenape territory. Translation of Lenape is original people, and while presently the majority of the Lenape are federally recognized and located in Oklahoma, we are still their neighbors. As we work to continue to honor and be in relation with our neighbors, both historical and current, we strive to be good stewards of this land, committed to continuing to educate ourselves on issues of cultural competency, colonization, and oppression, committed to supporting a community food pantry to address local food insecurity, creating a community garden and natural sanctuary on this land to deepen our connection to the earth and with our neighbors. We've organized a chapter of UUs for Justice in the Middle East to provide advocacy and action opportunities in support of Palestine, to honor the legacy of Native American genocide in the African diaspora, to honor the Black, Brown, and Native American lives, knowledge, skills, and labor stolen due to violence and the evolution of white supremacy culture. We acknowledge the complicity of the United States in the forced removal of Palestinians from Palestine. It is on this land and in this time that we are alive. I invite you to take a moment and be present to all the complexity of what it is to be alive today. Would you join me as you're willing and able, and taking a nice, easy breath together? It is difficult in the best of times to be human, and we are exploring that complexity today, hopefully with some joy and light, as well as challenge. So this morning we're going to light a chalice to celebrate this time together. We're going to light a candle here in the sanctuary. If you have a candle at home, I invite you to light it wherever you are. And I'm going to read the words that are on the screen. You do not need to read them with me, but I'd like you to kind of meditate on them. These words from Norman Patrick Brown. I am the holy being of my mother's prayer and my father's song. I am the holy being of my mother's prayer and my father's song. We're going to light our chalice. For our opening song, we're going to use this thing called a Shruti box. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit if you're here in the sanctuary. The song is called Come Light of Lights. It's written by Ruth Cunningham. It's very simple. There's only 2 lines. Come light of lights into my heart. Come wisdom of spirit into my heart. So I'll play it here on the Shruti box, and we're just going to sing it together a few times. Melody sounds like this. Come light of lights into my heart. Come wisdom of spirit into my heart. Can you sing that? Come light of lights into my heart. Come wisdom of spirit into my heart. Come light of lights into my heart. Come wisdom of spirit into my heart. Come light of lights into my heart. Come wisdom of spirit into my heart. One more. Come light of lights into my heart. Come wisdom of spirit into my heart. Thank you, friends. You sound great. Please be seated. So the mission of this congregation is building beloved community by embracing all souls and nurturing wholeness in one another and in ourselves. And one of the ways that we do that is through a ritual we call Joys and Sorrows. If this is your first time with us, you're invited to participate however you feel. If you just want to sit there and listen to Pat play some music, that's great. If you're feeling moved to come up to the front by the side aisle and grab a stone from the basket that's either at the rear of the sanctuary or here at the front, take a second and check in with yourself. Ask, what am I feeling today? What am I holding? Who am I thinking about, praying for, sending good energy towards? Let that stone become infused with those joys or sorrows, those hopes or wishes, or those people on your heart. And gently drop it into the bowl of water that symbolizes our community and how we hold one another in the practice of being human. Friends who are online, if you would like to share your joy and sorrow through the Zoom chat, we can see it here. And let us know if you would like it shared out loud into the sanctuary. We'll sit together for a moment, listen to some meditative music, and then come back together for a moment of reflection. Come, whoever you are, the table of joys and sorrows is open.
name is Portia, and my heart is somewhat heavy. I just returned from a family reunion, and that was strange but wonderful, because I learned there are people that I never knew that I was related to, and in a central way. And that was a surprise to me at 79. And also a very dear friend of mine transitioned. And I felt very sad about it because of her illness. But her spirit lives on, and I'm still kind of mourning the loss of that. Thank you.
I'm Levin, if you can hear me. I just came back from a family reunion in a very rural section of southwestern Virginia, and I had a fabulous time, except toward the very end, we were riding out in the country, and we passed by this house with this massive Confederate flag, and it was just so depressing to see it. It's like this is near the 250th anniversary of our country, and there it was. And it's not a symbol of national unity. It's racist, it's divisive, and it's depressing. It almost ruined my trip. I had just never seen it displayed like that. But this one was probably nearly the size of this rug. It was just incredibly large, and it was just very depressing to see something like that. Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Sharon. My joy is my one and only granddaughter turned 1 on Friday, so that's a big thrill. And I'm grateful for this community and other communities I belong to that have given me joy and support. This year has been very challenging for me. Starting from February, a lot of health issues that have not been resolved, more than usual. House issues with mold and toxic air to breathe, while I have lung issues, and a lot of car issues that are not resolved. And the bottom line of that also causes a lot of financial strain to straighten it out, because it turns out none of it's covered by insurance. So just want to thank people who have already listened to my long saga, but it's still a challenge. I'm not in a place where I feel like I'm up to my full ability to respond the way I would like to. Thank you.
I have a joy because yesterday, for a week, my grandparents came over and I had so much fun. And my sorrow is that my grandparents left yesterday, and I'm very sad because I miss them.
I'm Jane, and I'm just wishing McKinley and his family a wonderful vacation. Give him a hand for all that he does today. Yay!
My name is Sila. My joy is we just got back from a beautiful trip to Hawaii. Sorrow was I was trying not to check the news too much, but more lives taken by our government in that time. But while I was there, I was thinking about, this is such a weird year with 250 and what it is to be American, and just in this 1 year, we've gotten to go to a wedding and celebrate Jewish traditions. At this wedding, we learned Hawaiian traditions. We're going to Texas in August for my niece's quinceañera, and I just think that's what it is. That's what being American is.
Hi, I'm Sandy. I'm a member of this church and have been for a long time. And I live at Stapley, which is a senior house for old people like me. And I would like just to ask everyone to think about all of the sick people in that place. And I know so many of them, and a lot of them are not doing well, and a lot of them are. So let's pray perhaps for the people who are getting better, and hopefully for those who don't show much improvement. Thank you.
My first stone is for my husband Gary. If you could hold him in your prayers on Wednesday, the chemo really affects the health of your gums, and he needs to have 4 teeth pulled. My other stone is for my daughter, Callie, my one and only. And she turns 35 tomorrow, and I pulled out lots of her baby book and memorabilia and things that I saved to show her that she hasn't seen. And yesterday I read to her, when she was 11, she filled out this sheet, and I don't know if it was coming of age or not, but the qualities you see in yourself as a leader. And so she was so surprised at what she knew at age 11. And so I think, may we all check in with our 11-year-old selves and think, what did we think our great qualities were then?
So we drop a few more stones into the bowl to celebrate and remember and mourn for all the joys and sorrows, people in our hearts that were not spoken out loud. Would you join me in a moment of stillness and silence? Come light of lights into my heart. Come wisdom of spirit into our hearts. Blessed be. Before we hear from Mary, we are going to do our sharing of financial resources here for the good of this community. We're going to take up our offering by passing a plate here in the sanctuary. If this is your first time here with us, we don't expect you to put anything in the plate other than one of the contact cards that you find in the pews to let us know how you found us and how we might support you. Friends who are online, you have the opportunity to contribute to the offering as well by following the instructions on our screen. Here at UU Mount Airy, the offering works a little bit differently, perhaps, than some other communities. It actually goes to 2 different places. So anything that you put into the white envelopes that are in your pews that you can mark change for change, and any pocket change that you put into the plates that's going around, goes towards a different social justice organization each month. For July and August, it's Albustan Seeds of Culture, and we're going to hear from one of their representatives in August. If you are online, you can choose Change for Change or the offering plate as well, and you can make 2 different donations. There is no expectation that you have to give anything financial. We know there are lots of ways to give back, but the giving of monies is one of them. We're going to receive that offering and give you our offering of Pat and his music today. Pat, turn it over to you.
I wanted to give just like a really brief intro to this song before I play it. When I moved to, most of you looked at this and thought who was Mischief Brew. When I moved to Philadelphia like a little over 20 years ago, Mischief Brew were really like a centerpiece of West Philly DIY punk rock art and music culture, and specifically their frontman Eric. Eric was like a first exposure to radical politics and protest music for a lot of people. And earlier this month marked 10 years since Eric took his own life. And so I wanted to take a moment. I want to thank Kinley for letting me the space to do one of Eric's songs. I asked a student about schooling. He said he didn't care. When I asked about the 60s, they simply said long hair. Saw a child getting program as she was, and I heard her age and elder. Never seemed 20 years too late. Oh, how they did this to me, son. Life's too short to wait, and the students of higher schooling get more pills inside his plate. So I'd like to send gratitude and thanks to those who had the courage to defy the mighty ranks. Send it to the students who wave the banners, who held flowers up to their tanks, and to the ones who are still fighting. Yes, all my gratitude and all my thanks. So as we sit baked and hammered, so grateful to be dead, saying freedom's here to chill out, so soon rest your head. Think of those who fought for your right, and the path you walked they paved, and to those who fought for their right to carry until today. It was they who fed the hungry, from the Pentagon for peace, while the army rounded strangers up and made them into police. It was they who formed a union, got to draft and filled the jails, and started the message of unity across the nation's hills. And we're destroying the house that Mac built, kicking down doors and pulling nails. And you, the nerve, can tell me that everyone has failed. No, you should send your gratitude and thanks to those who had the courage to defy the mighty ranks. Send it to the students who wave the banners, who held flowers up to their tanks, and to the ones who are still fighting. Yes, all my gratitude and all my thanks. I'd like to hold out a hand, help heart and hand to the glad girl to reach and rise and stand. Send it to the lovers and the fighters, to those who stood up and still stand, those who unchained their wrists and clenched their fists both here and in faraway lands. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, thank you. So we're going to invite Mary LaValle forward to offer our words of reflection this morning. A big shout out to Mary because she was traveling this week, helping take care of family members and also working on reflection. So we're very, very grateful for her as well. Mary, come on up.
How's that? Is that good? Okay, good morning, everybody. Many families have stories that inform their moral clarity. We choose our path based on lived experience. When I was 6 or 7, Mom would take us, myself and my brother, to the park in Los Angeles to play with Sammy Davis Jr.'s children, Mark and Tracy. Sammy had married Mae Britt when it was illegal for black and white people to marry. One day, other children joined us. Mom said they threw sand in our eyes. She rushed us all back to our home and rinsed our eyes with milk. Mom later told us the incident happened because our friends were black. I remember the park, my brownie meetings, the drama classes, the slide, the sand, and the Neapolitan ice cream sandwiches. I don't remember the other children, and my heart was pounding, breathing labored from the buried visceral memory as I wrote this. We moved to northern New Jersey. I saw a KKK march for the first time when I was 8 years old. I experienced anti-Semitism in class, on the playground, in brownie meetings. My dad considered changing our last name from Weinstein when he heard anti-Semitic comments from his coworkers. I don't know what it is to be black, but I know what it is to be other. We moved to Atlanta in the late 60s. We joined the Unitarian Church. Jean Pickett was the minister. Jean had marched at Selma. Visits to church often included spending time with prominent civil rights workers. Our family embraced the community. Jean and Dad became good friends. I joined the Sunday evening Liberal Religious Youth Education Gathering, LRY. My parents helped found the social justice-oriented school, which my brother and sister, and more recently, John Ossoff, attended. I began volunteer work in the burn unit at Grady Memorial Hospital in the most underprivileged and oppressed area of the city. I moved to this area after college graduation in Baltimore. As my children grew, I began to re-explore my spiritual life. I looked for a local UU congregation and found the Church of the Restoration, just a few minutes away. My son brought home a school assignment. My initial goal was to help my 7-year-old with a school genealogy project. Then it became a quest to prove or disprove family myths, such as Great Aunt Jessie Lee's pride in believing we were related to Robert King Carter, the largest enslaver in Virginia, or that a third great-grandfather was a wagon master on the Santa Fe Trail, a trail used for military expeditions against native tribes, accompanied by Kit Carson, stories about visits to the Missouri family farm by Jesse James. Now, it is a reparational history sociological study to understand the past, how our society has developed over time, and its impact on the present. I've just found documentation that authorities in Jamestown gave permission for my 10th great-grandfather to, quote-unquote, keep his native, a woman who appears to be my 10th great-granny, one of many ancestors who guide me. My third great-grandfather bears the same name as the man who is responsible for ending the transatlantic slave trade. During COVID and a long recovery from a traumatic illness, I discovered our Zoom services. Social Justice had become Justice Council. Green Street Friends initiated the reparations program. We were considering ours. There was never a question of my commitment to Black lives and reparations. When I shared a Native friend's concern with Justice Council that Green Street's program excluded Native American repair, the reaction from some members of the group was to state that Natives were not eligible. They had not been chattel slaves. I knew in my soul that was incorrect, confirmed the language in the Virginia slave codes, and became dedicated to educating myself and others toward advocacy and justice for all Black and brown people, people of all faiths. It's been a difficult path, met with resistance which continues to do harm. My resolve was hardened, but my heart is lighter knowing that UUs of Mount Airy now acknowledges our accountability and the need for Native repair, that other congregations are now interested in learning more about their accountability based on this work. From Linford Fisher, professor at Brown University and author of the newly released book, Stealing America and the Digital Database, Stolen Lives. Indigenous enslavement was never as large in scale as African slavery, but was equally as important in terms of the processes and ideologies of settler colonialism. It did not perfectly map onto African slavery. It had its own origins, rising and falling and resurfacing over time. Native Americans continue to experience the most severe inequities in life expectancy, health, income, incarceration rates, and length of sentence as compared to other oppressed groups in the U.S. I've identified my settler colonists, ancestral faith communities, enslavers and enslaved, those who would eradicate Native culture and natives, my emerging Native family, and my genealogy connection to this congregation, my home of faith. Thank you.
I invite you to remain seated. We're going to listen to a song that's going to play in a video. It's called Resilient by the band Rising Appalachia.
I am resilient, I trust the movement, I negate the chaos, uplift the negative. I'll show up at the table again and again and again. I'll close my mouth and learn to listen. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. 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 These times are poignant, the winds have shifted. It's all we can do to stay uplifted. Pipelines through backyards, wolves howling out fronts. Yeah, I got my crew, but truth is what I want. Realigned and on point, power to the peaceful, prayers to the waters, women at the center, all vessels open to give and receive. Let's see the system brought down to its knees. Whoa, 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 ooh, 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 whoa, 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 ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm sure so does yours. Put us all together, make a mighty I am resilient, I trust the movement, I negate the chaos, uplift the negative. I'll show up at the table again and again and again. I'll close my mouth and learn to listen.
We thought you might like that. If you do not know that one, that's called Resilient by Rising Appalachia. And it's a jam. We're going to be a little bit more informal because it's my last Sunday before vacation, and also my back is a little sore, so would you take a breath with me? Some of you may know I went to Wales last year on sabbatical to do some family ancestry work, to learn where my family from Wales came. And the first ancestor that I learned of was Great Uncle Jenkin, who went to a town called Pittsburgh to work in the coal mines because he was a coal miner in Wales. We were in Pittsburgh a couple of weeks ago for one of KP's work trips, and I got to introduce my kids to Mr. Rogers, who's from Pittsburgh, if you did not know. And Mr. Rogers was also a minister, like me. He's a Presbyterian minister that you may not have known, but that was part of the way that he saw the world, and part of his call to ministry was to speak to children and adults through the medium of television. So I took the kids to the Mr. Rogers exhibit at the museum, and they saw Daniel Tiger, and they got very excited. It was really, really fun. And then we watched the documentary, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And I've been reflecting on stories and family, and the need for imagination in telling our stories and understanding who we are as human beings and as people together. Because Mr. Rogers teaches us, and anyone who does family genealogy or reparative genealogy work knows, that these stories have a certain power and meaning in our lives. And it is stories that change people's minds. It is stories that offer different perspectives that help us find new ways of understanding the world. You may have seen, we're in kind of a polarized, divided place right now in our country. And there is no amount of facts that will change someone's mind. I don't know if you've noticed this or not. But there is a huge body of evidence, and I have some direct evidence from my own life, that it is stories that change people's minds. One of the first people to really help me crystallize that understanding was a man named Carl Wilkins. Carl Wilkins was the last American in Rwanda during the genocide in that country. He and his wife chose to stay at great risk to their own lives to help their neighbors, because they had been living there for a while. They were Christian missionaries. And I met him in Connecticut when I was teaching, and he told all of these stories to me and to our students, and he shared that the power of story should never be underestimated to transform people's hearts. Because when he was living in a time of genocide, I forget the group's name now, but the people who had the guns came to his neighborhood, and they came to kill his neighbors. And he was somewhat protected by the color of his skin and by his Americanness, but his neighbors were not. And he and a neighbor who was of a different ethnicity came out to confront the men with guns. And he says, I didn't know what to do. I just was trying to do anything I could to talk them down, to convince them that this was not the right thing to do. And I was using all of the logic that I could and appealing to Scripture and praying for them, and it wasn't working. But then the woman who took care of my kids, and who took care of the kids of my neighbors, who was from their same tribe, started speaking to the young men with the guns and saying, no, we know these people. Our kids play together, and started telling them stories of birthday parties and of jumping in the puddles when the rains came down, and how they cared for one another when they broke a toe. And through just the sheer volume of love and compassion pouring out of these stories, the men with the guns turned around and left. That it was the power of stories to transform their hearts. So those stories didn't end the genocide, right? They don't always make everything better. But in that moment, in that space, the imagination of those stories reversed the dehumanization that accompanies things like genocide, colonialism, removal, othering, right? These are processes of dehumanization. You may have heard the stories between the Hutus and the Tutsis in Rwanda, right? It started with language, right? Of referring to people not as human beings, but as something other, right? You may have heard this kind of language from people in power, from the people who are in charge of making our laws and policies, right? Dehumanizing language. Stories have the power to rehumanize. This is what Mr. Rogers would do, right? When he was telling stories, he was rehumanizing the children and us who watched, reminding us, you are human, you have feelings, you have stories, you have the power of make-believe, right? You're not just like a meat puppet walking around, right? There's depth to you. Embrace that. There's lots of layers to being human. I shared a story last week about this podcast called the Necessary Conversations podcast between a liberal sibling pair that's kind of my age and their older family members, and how they've been trying to have conversations to break their older MAGA family members out of that grip. And for 4 or 5 years, it has not been working. But just recently, through an interaction with a nurse who was caring, pouring out love and compassion, and telling a story, something clicked. And these MAGA parents went from being MAGA parents to saying the words, abolish ICE. That's incredible, right? That's miraculous. That's also a story of rehumanization. Because the way that insular groups, the way that cults, the way that very insular schismatic churches work, is that they thrive on outrage and fear, right? And they always feed those two feelings. We have lots of other feelings too. But they always feed those feelings, outrage and fear. And if they can keep you stuck in an anger cycle, you never process those feelings. And you constantly need more and more and more, right? The dopamine in your brain, the cycle just keeps going and going and going. If you never process those feelings, they get trapped inside your body, then they explode out in anger or violence. This is classic textbook, the way that cycles of violence work. So what Mr. Rogers felt called to do was to help kids process those feelings of anger and fear, and to embrace all of what it is to be human, to rehumanize. So my family, I told stories of my ancestors who were enslavers, came to the island of Antigua, and then eventually to Virginia, and what it was like to learn those stories, to see my last name printed in a book of slave ship captains. When I had heard the family story all my life, we never owned slaves. We were some of the good ones. It's not our fault, so we don't have to do anything about it. And in fact, some of our ancestors were Native Americans. We were part Cherokee, and we should be proud of that. Other folks may have had similar stories in your family. We told these family myths, it turns out, right? Because it's so hard to deal with those feelings. The feelings that came when I saw my last name written on a list of plantation owners on the island of Antigua. And that moral injury that gets passed down genetically, theologically, right? That's a lot to deal with. Levin shared kind of feelings that happen when you see a Confederate flag still flying. Right? The addiction to outrage and anger and fear. That's what produces these symbols. And if we never deal with those feelings as individuals, as a country, they get stored inside our national conscious and our own conscious, right? And then they explode out in anger and violence. January 6th, ICE, you name it. In the movie about Mr. Rogers' life and ministry, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, he is sharing some of this with a reporter from Esquire magazine. And the reporter names A Hard Truth. He says, "It must have been hard for your children to have you as a father. That must have been a challenge." It's a lot to live up to be the child of Mr. Rogers. And he pauses, Tom Hanks pauses, and this happened in real life as well. And he says, "Thank you for that perspective. I hadn't thought about that, and it must have been hard." It is the stories and the feelings of others that change our perspective, that change our hearts and minds. And that is a rehumanization process. That is the antidote for colonialism and removal and all of the violence and policy that we are currently seeing and experiencing, right? What we call a culture of white supremacy, that's based on myths. It's based on stories, but they're the wrong kind of stories, because they're stories of dehumanization, and they're very powerful. And so are our stories. Our family stories, our individual stories, the stories of our moral injury, of how we've learned to become resilient. Part of our rehumanization process, for us, like here in this room, and like for us, country, is something that Mr. Rogers has been trying to teach us since the 1970s. We had these big feelings of fear and anger. We don't always know how to process them. We didn't always get taught how to process them, right? And when those get stored inside of us, we have to figure out what to do. Sometimes telling stories is a way to process those feelings. That's why Mary and I are sharing our stories today. It's part of our journey, is the language Mary used. This is the next step on our journey. So what do we do with these feelings of shame or guilt or anger or fear about our families, about our nation? As Mary shared, alongside those stories of anger and fear are also stories of courage and hope and love, right? All of our families are mixed bags. All of us are mixed bags. None of us are perfect, thank God. And if we can learn to see ourselves as not perfect, if we can learn to see our families as not perfect, and as transformable, that is a rehumanizing process. You may have had this experience. I've had family members that I did not talk to for 10 years. To cut off contact was the easier, safer in many ways, but easier thing to do. Until I was asked to go into a funeral last year for a family member I had not talked to in 10 years. And my family had all these feelings of anger and sadness and guilt that they didn't know what to do with. So they called the minister to come and be Mr. Rogers, to come and name feelings and work that out. And I had a family member who I had not talked to in 10 years. The last time we had talked, it had been via text, and it had been full of anger and name-calling from them. and full of shutting down and cutting off from me. And they came up afterwards and apologized. And we hugged, and there was some transformation. Because I told stories of what it's like to be human. This theory in psychology is called integrating your split-offs, or reintegrating your split-offs, the parts of ourselves that we have tried to separate away, that we've tried to remove, that we've tried to force onto reservations from our soul, so that we don't have to think about that shame or guilt. And as we're seeing, that does not solve the problem. Maybe the easier choice, it may be the choice that helps fuel outrage and anger and fear, but it's also a dehumanizing choice ultimately. Because those split-offs, those parts of ourselves, especially those parts of ourselves that we get from our family members, like genetically or culturally, that we would rather not deal with, we'd rather just put away, they're also part of us. Mr. Rogers says to this young reporter, or a middle-aged reporter, I guess, who is struggling with his relationship with his father, he says, you know, you owe him something too, because he helped make you who you are. Even in this strained, awful relationship, that fueled your sense of justice and your sense of right and wrong. There can be a sense of gratitude for that as well. Big feelings. How do we process those feelings? That the family from which I am estranged also helped make me who I am, right? Led me to this moment, that is part of my story. When I tell the story of me and of my new family, right, that is part of our story. And to simply not talk about that, to cut it off, is a dehumanizing process. Learning to reintegrate those parts of ourselves that we don't like, those parts of our family that we don't like, when it's safe to do so, is part of our rehumanizing. It's part of putting love at the center. And some days I wish it was not part of putting love at the center. Some days I wish putting love at the center was just being with all of you and having really nice church services and singing all the time. But Mr. Rogers knew better. So when we are able to try to integrate some of those stories that make us uncomfortable, this is where the work of Resmaa Menakem has been very helpful for me, and I offer it again to you. The book, My Grandmother's Hands, is an incredible resource. The book, The Body Keeps the Score, is an incredible resource on how we see ourselves as integrated, whole people, fully human people with all of our feelings and all of our stuff. And this reminder that we aren't perfect, but we have an incredible power through our stories. The power to change hearts and minds in ways that facts will just not do. That you can tell someone, don't be afraid, there's nothing to fear, it's just make-believe. And my kids don't get it. But when we tell stories about Jedi Knights and mythical heroes and of family members who help each other, of great civil rights workers, that's when it starts to take root. And our roots that go down, down, down deep, they start to draw from all of our story. It's our rehumanizing story. So, our takeaways, I hope that you're hearing. Whatever your family story is, whatever your story is, we invite you to investigate it, to learn about it, to lean into it, especially those parts that are challenging for us, and to ask for help if you need. Because learning to tell our whole stories and tell each other our whole stories is part of our rehumanizing process. And then when we share that with others, God willing, it might be part of their rehumanizing process too. So we all have these feelings, and our feelings are good and whole and holy. So I want to invite you to a moment of gratitude and thanks. I want you to think about both the easy ones, someone in our family for which you are so grateful for what they have given you, that's so easy to name because it was positive or hopeful or creative or joyous or loving. And take a moment of gratitude for that person, for their life, for how they impacted you, touched your soul, helped to raise you into who you are. And then if you can now, or if you want to wait until later, to invite someone or something that you have split off. And gently, just ever so lightly, touch it with your mind. And use your imagination to see a different perspective of how they have made you who you are. And if that feels safe, to offer some gratitude and thanks for that. Whether you learn from them what to do, or you learn from them what not to do, and how not to be. May we practice gratitude and thanks for all of our stories. May we learn to share these parts of ourselves, to build beloved community and nurture wholeness in one another and in this world. And may the lessons of people like Mr. Rogers, of Carl Wilkins, and the Rwandan women whose stories change hearts and minds, rehumanize us, and help us put love at the center of all that we do, so that those who come after us will be able to find their way home a little bit easier. May it be so. Amen. Let's breathe for just a second. Beloveds, it is the end of our time together. We're going to extinguish our chalice here in the sanctuary. And then if you would like to join us over in Hale Lounge for some lemonade and cookies, we would love to meet you over there and find out more about how you can get in touch with us, friends who are online. Check in with you very briefly afterwards if you want to stick around and tell me how you're doing. I will be on vacation for the month of August. I'll be back at the end of August, and then I go on study leave where I go and be quiet and write and plan and do all kinds of things. So this is my last Sunday with you for a minute. But we have lots of things coming up, plenty of exciting news coming up about the new church year. So we're very excited about what's going to be happening over the rest of the summer and then starting in September. And I want to invite everyone here to mark your calendars for the second Sunday in September. It's the 13th. It's super late this year. Labor Day is super late. That's going to be our water communion and our in-gathering service. So we invite you to come back. If you're not going to make it back to any other service in August, please come back for that one, the second Sunday in September. And we'll have lots of new things, hopefully, to show you downstairs, lots of things to celebrate, and lots of reason to be together in love. Amen? All right, friends. We're going to distinguish our chalice with the words from Reverend Elizabeth Sell Jones that are shared to your screen and here in the sanctuary. Would you read them along with me? We extinguish this flame. All right, our last hymn is a video. It's number 323 in the gray hymnal. This hymn is called Break Not the Circle. I want you to rise in body or in spirit. If you want to sing along in the gray hymnal, you can. We're going to have help from a choir here that's going to help sing us on this video. Number 323.
Break not the circle of the neighboring wall, where people grow forgiven and forgiving. Break not the circle, make it wider still, till it includes and embraces all the living. Come wander at this love that comes to life, where words of freedom are with humor spoken, and people keep no score of wrong and guilt, but will that human bonds remain unbroken. Join then the movement of the love that frees, till people of whatever race or nation will truly be themselves and on their feet, see eye to eye with laughter and elation.
I like that one. Hear these words. Go in peace to love and serve one another, to love and serve the world, and to love yourself. We are storytelling people. We are all stories worthy of sharing. Amen, friends. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.